Okay. Over the past year, I decided to engulf myself in all things Dragon Ball. And when I say all things, I mean all things, even this. It's not that I wasn't a fan of the series until this past year, but this past year is when I decided to dig deep into the franchise. I had grown up watching Dragon Ball Z Kai on Nicktoons every week, listening to this banger.
Don't stop, we're in love now. Don't stop, there's so much to be found. We can't find paradise. All we have to do is go, free your soul. Dragon Soul!
So it's pretty clear that I am not a part of the Toonami crowd of DBZ fans that populates the West. I became a fan because of Kai. Here in the States, Dragon Ball is often looked at as this sort of stereotypical anime. It's the show where people scream and punch each other, and while it is that, I can confidently say that after watching the entire series in Japanese with subtitles and doing research on understanding the creator himself, Akira Toriyama, it's much, much more. The West and Japan look at Dragon Ball so very differently, and I want to tackle why that is. Part 1. Which came first? Like I said earlier, a lot of people in the West became Dragon Ball fans when the show started airing on Toonami. This was in the early 90s, and it was when audiences got to watch the famous Ocean dub. And after this one episode, it would constantly restart itself back to Raditz before Funimation stopped outsourcing to Ocean Studios and began doing everything in-house. It went on to air in the States till the early 2000s. This is how Dragon Ball exploded in the West. It was DBZ. The popularity of the term DBZ is still something that's felt in the culture of the States to this very day because of the impact that it made in the 90s. It's crazy to me how so much Dragon Ball stuff finds a way to put the Z in the title, even if there's an X. Z is the area of the franchise that's known for the bombastic fights and the beam struggles and the outlandish transformations. But that's because that's what we got here first. It's what a lot of people only look at the franchise as and nothing more. In Japan, it's a very different story. You see, in Japan, Dragon Ball took the time slot of another show when it started airing, Dr. Slump. Slump was a gag manga anime, and it was ridiculously huge in Japan. And Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, is widely known in Japan for creating both Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump.
よくわかんないですけど。
何しろとにかくこのあられちゃんの出てきますドクタースランプがどんなにヒットしたかということで、まず漫画になりました。これは連載を始めしてらっしゃるんですね。
はい。
雑誌に。
そうです。
連載。それはジャンプ。
In fact, the finale of Dr. Slump has a next episode preview that leads straight into Dragon Ball.
ほら、孫悟空ってんだ。よろしくな。みんなドラゴンボールって聞いたことあるか？
A lot of people look at the franchise of Dragon Ball and think ZZZ, but the truth is, Z is only about the last 60% of the story. Dragon Ball is the first 40%. For better or for worse, Z is what got big in the States first. The first couple of episodes of the original Dragon Ball did air in the States before DBZ, but they never blew up, and those in charge of airing the series in the States thought skipping to Z would allow them to get right into the action. So what's the problem? We got Dragon Ball after Z here, so what? Well, the problem is, Dragon Ball informs Z. The anime Dragon Ball Z is only an anime, in fact. There is no manga called Dragon Ball Z. In Japan, while Toriyama was writing the manga, it was one long series called Dragon Ball that started with Kid Goku and ended with Goku going off to train Oob. One long story. The American translation by Viz changed this to where the final 26 volumes of Dragon Ball were relabeled Dragon Ball Z, in an effort to capitalize on the popularity of that damn Z. It was the anime staff over at Toei who decided to split the anime adaptation of the series into two parts for various reasons, but the issue is, so much of the nuance in Z is lost when you skip the original Dragon Ball. I challenge you to feel any emotion when Kuririn or Krillin is killed. I challenge you to feel any sort of shock when Goku is revealed to be an alien. Hell, even the return of the Red Ribbon Army lacks impact if you don't know and understand their history in this universe and how Goku had to deal with them. A lot of Dragon Ball fans in the West will often say, just skip to Z, and they'll say that it's the more important part of the story. Well, that's simply because that's what a lot of people saw first, and they felt they were able to understand Z just fine. Once the original Dragon Ball got a full English dub, it was often marketed as a prequel. It was seen as something purely optional. Americans essentially got the story told backwards, which results in people looking at the Dragon Ball franchise as just a bombastic fight show, rather than a story about the evolution of Son Goku, from a boy to a teen to a man. I mean, the Dragon Ball series literally starts off with scenes like this.
ではまず国語からいく。悟空、12ページから読んでみろ。
うふんくすぐつったい。ダメよ、もうすぐママが帰ってくるんだからとマーガレッツとは言ったのだが僕は強引に。
It was a comedy martial arts show, but at its core, it goes back to this conversation between Muten Roshi, Kyurden, and Son Goku.
よく動き、よく学び、よく食べて、よく休む。これが亀仙流の修行じゃ。
Kid Goku is so significant in Japan that to this very day, there is always art of Goku with the Nyoibo, or the power pole as it's called here. It was in the opening credits of Z, it was in GT's ending credits, Super's ending credits, it was in some art for the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, GT Goku from Fighters has the Nyoibo, and just recently, it's been added to Fortnite along with other Dragon Ball skins and accessories. It's all meant to signify where this story began, with a young boy who ends up seeking the call to a mystical adventure. But that significance isn't felt as strongly outside of Japan because we didn't get to experience the adventures and life of a young Goku first, like they did.
Your evil deeds are like a noose around your neck.
The classic debate, sub versus dub. An anime debate where everyone thinks that they've got the right answer. The fact is, nowadays, a lot of anime dubs are extremely solid. But back when DBZ was first being aired on Toonami, the dub for it was less than stellar.
This is amazing! I feel incredible! Yes, 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 yes! I can win! I feel great!
Nice move, but your shoe came untied.
I'm not going to fall for that. I don't even have shoelaces.
Darn.
Now, I'm not trying to say that the dub is bad, but I think it's fair to say that it wasn't nearly as good of a dub as the dub for Super or the dub for Kai is. What do I mean by this? Well, I mean in terms of the performances, the script, and the music. These three things fundamentally change how people in the West look at Dragon Ball compared to people in Japan. In terms of performances, there was, of course, the Ocean cast, who were eventually replaced by the Funimation cast that we all know today. Sean Schemmel as Goku, Sonny Strait as Krillin, Chris Sabat as everyone? The point is, this cast is pretty iconic when it comes to the English world of Dragon Ball, but the performances here were not very good. Now, to everyone's credit, they've all gotten much, much better, but because of how their performances came off in Z, especially in the early Frieza Saga episodes when they first started, the show came across as very cheesy. It was the most 90s American thing ever. Now, if you want to call it bad, you can. In my opinion, as someone who has no nostalgia for this dub, I think it is. But it's fair to say that the cheesiness that was in a lot of these performances played a huge part into why Dragon Ball Z was loved in America and how it was looked at here. The second thing, and the most important thing in my opinion, is the script. Now look, whether people want to admit it or not, the original Funimation dub of Dragon Ball Z is not good when it comes to Japanese accuracy. They would often change the lines for no reason or to make jokes and the like. While I get that when dubbing anime, you sometimes have to change the lines a bit from the Japanese translation to fit the mouth flaps or to have something make sense to an American audience, the level of script changes with the Z dub is insane. There are many examples of this, but I want to focus on two. The first is the moment where Goku tells Krillin to let Vegeta go. In the original Japanese version, the scene plays out like this, with Goku pleading to Krillin to let Vegeta get away so he can fight him again.
Goku, お前なのか? そうだ。大きな声出せねえから。クリリン、すまねえがそいつを行かせてやってくれ。なんだって、正気か。頼む。オラのたった一度だけのわがままだ。だけど悟空、こいつは俺たちの仲間を殺し、世界中のみんなを殺そうとしたやつだぜ。今見逃したら必ず体力を回復させてまたやってくるぞ。そうだろうな。ほら、もう一度修行を積み、そいつと戦いて。こいつはヤムチャさんを、天津飯を、チャオズを、 殺したやつなんだぞ。間違ってるのは分かってる。だけどほらのわがままを聞いてくれ。もう一度やつと戦うチャンスをくれ。
Goku is an incredibly selfish character who doesn't understand the severity of a lot of the situations he puts the Earth in due to these careless actions. He is a Saiyan, someone who, by his very nature, loves the thrill of battle. He gets excitement from it. That's who the character is, and he stayed consistent in that regard even in Dragon Ball Super. In the Z dub of this scene, however, Goku's character is fundamentally reconstructed. He instead tells Krillin this.
Stop! Don't do it!
Goku, is that you? We have got to stop this guy while we have the chance. He's pure evil.
No! Listen, just let him go, Krillin. Show him what it means to be merciful.
Merciful? But Goku, he's...
I know what you must be thinking, Krillin, but believe me, I know what I'm doing.
But this is the guy that threatened all the people here on Earth. Surely he'll try to come back and destroy us again. I just don't think it's a good idea to let him escape now that we have a chance to stop him for good.
By doing this, we're showing him that there's another way. A better way. Go. Krillin, please. I know this is the right thing to do. You've got to trust me.
But the Saiyans killed Yamcha and Tien! Jiaotsu! I can't let him get away!
Don't do it, Krillin. I know it seems like justice, but it's not right. If you strike him down, it will only show that we aren't any better than he is. It means that they've won, no matter what. Be strong.
He instead tells Krillin to let Vegeta go to show him mercy, because there's good in him. Now again, there's nothing wrong with preferring one line over the other. But my issue with this stems from the fact that this line change completely changes how the character of Goku is portrayed. Another more famous example of this instance is Goku's I am speech to Frieza.
星は壊せてもたった一人の人間は壊せねえようだな。何者だ。とっくにご存知なんだろう。俺は地球から貴様を倒すためにやってきたサイヤ人。穏やかな心を持ちながら激しい怒りによって目覚めた伝説の戦士。
You can destroy planets, but you can never destroy what I am, friend.
You... What are you?
I am the hope of the universe. I am the answer to all living things that cry out for peace. I am protector of the innocent. I am the light in the darkness. I am truth. Allied to good, nightmare to you.
In the dub, he portrays himself as a superhero, saying he's the protector of the innocent. While in the Japanese version, Goku declares that he is a Saiyan. This is a pivotal moment where Goku is accepting his heritage, his blood, his Saiyan pride for the very first time. Because of changes such as these, Dragon Ball in America is looked at as this sort of pseudo-superhero type show, where characters like Goku are archetypal figures, but that is not the case at all in Japan. He's looked at extremely differently. My final point about this dub lies within its music. Now, the American music for Dragon Ball Z is... straight fire. There's a lot of moments where the music is just head pounding. The music is great, and I think I should point out here that Bruce Faulkner, the head of Faulkner Productions, which was the company making the music for DBZ, was not the composer for a lot of these songs. There's more information about this in Geekdom 101's video. I'll link the video in the description. As I said, the Z-dub has some great songs, but it's more hardcore rock instead of a martial arts type soundtrack. The Japanese score has much more of a kung fu old western type feel to it, and it works extremely well in establishing a particular tone for the series. It fits the story and themes the show is trying to portray much better than hardcore rock in my opinion. Again, there's nothing wrong with preferring one over the other, but the music that DBZ had in the States, without a doubt, played a huge part into how it was looked at here. All in all, the English dub of DBZ is a strong reason why DBZ has a sort of stigma around it. That's not to say you can't appreciate it, because I don't want to yuck on so many other people's childhoods, but the changes made with the dub certainly changed the feel Dragon Ball Z had when it came to the States. Part 3, the deeper meanings. A lot of people watch the Dragon Ball franchise for the fight scenes and the epic battles, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, these fight scenes are extremely entertaining and very exhilarating, but a lot of stuff from the original Japanese has been altered in the West, removing some of the deeper meanings for certain things, resulting in the audience here not thinking about the bigger picture as much. The particular thing from the show that was removed here that annoys me the most is the removal of most of the Buddhist and Taoist elements. They're subtle, but they're there. For example, a lot of the names in the series were changed when it was being localized around here. God's Temple was replaced with the name The Lookout. Kami is the guardian of Earth rather than God. I mean, he's literally supposed to be God. The Tenkaichi Budokai, which translates to the strongest under the heavens tournament, was changed to the World Martial Arts Tournament. The Room of Spirit and Time was changed to the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. These spiritual aspects of the series were stripped in the American versions, removing so much of the importance of these things. Kami, for example, no longer holds the weight he once did when he isn't called God. In fact, Kami is a Shinto deity who's known well in Japan. Hell, even the Makenko Sappo, which translates to demons penetrating killing light gun, was changed to the Special Beam Cannon. While these changes don't impact the narrative of the story as much as the dialogue changes from the dub, they do strip the series of a sense of intelligence. Dragon Ball is heavily influenced by Taoism and Buddhist beliefs. Toriyama was also very inspired by Chinese stories like Journey to the West. Those aspects of the show, the deeper meanings, they're there, but they don't exist in the English versions of the series to any substantial degree. The Japanese, however, are very well aware of the weight these references hold because they are overt in their version of the show, and their culture is more understanding of these references. In the American version of the series, these references are absent for the most part, resulting in a lot of people looking at Z in America as something that lacks substance, and that it's just a fight show with no meaning behind it. It's unfortunate because when you look deep into Dragon Ball, there's a lot that you can find. There's more information about the spiritual aspects of Dragon Ball and the entire series in Derek Padula's series of Dragon Ball books if you're interested in checking that out. But my point is, Toriyama was always trying to put more into Dragon Ball than just the action. Akira Toriyama is a very intelligent man. Yes, there are some parts of Dragon Ball that are dumb, but it's pretty clear that the dude was thinking about this stuff a lot more than most people give him credit for. In fact, Toriyama himself is a huge reason why the West and Japan look at Dragon Ball differently. He was already very well known in Japan for his brand of comedy with series like Dr. Slump. Dragon Ball's roots stem from a very particular kind of crude humor that's very hard to adapt to an audience outside of Japan. While a lot of that humor has aged poorly by today's standards, the Japanese knew who this guy was and his work prior to watching the Dragon Ball franchise. They got a bit more out of it because of this. It's kind of like how people have a general idea how a film from Quentin Tarantino will feel because we're familiar with most of his work. None of Toriyama's work had been adapted here prior to Dragon Ball. The West does not have that same familiarity with Toriyama, so when stuff like the recent Dragon Ball superhero movie comes out and it's full of Toriyama's kind of humor, some casual fans may raise their eyebrow at certain jokes, like when Piccolo says he can see Gamma 2's words, because we didn't grow up with his stuff like so many others in Japan did. the culture of Japan is so important to the essence of Dragon Ball because fundamentally, this is a Japanese franchise. It's unfortunate that a lot of these removals of spirituality in the series can be undone because they're too ingrained in our pop culture. Fun fact, when Kai got its uncut Blu-ray, they did try to be more accurate with some of the terminology. They called the Makanko Sapo the Makanko Sapo.
Makanko Sapo!
They even called the solar flare its proper name, Taiyo-ken. While this was a step in the right direction, Kai didn't do much else to add back the spirituality that was taken away. These terms we have for a lot of the stuff about Dragon Ball are too ingrained in our pop culture for it to be changed. Dragon Ball is a worldwide property now, but it's always going to be a Japanese product first and foremost. So people outside of Japan will always look at it with a different set of eyes than those in Japan because we don't have the same kind of relationship with the culture or with Toriyama himself. So, those are my 3 big main reasons as to why I feel like there's a culture clash between Dragon Ball in America versus Dragon Ball in Japan. I kind of put a forefront in there with that Toriyama bit, but I felt like it, meshed well together as a whole. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. I've been working on this video for a little bit now. I mean, it's been sitting on my hard drive for about a month or 2, and I just recently found the urge to, actually finish it. But yeah, if you did enjoy the video, leave a like I said, but also check out these other videos that should be over here. Yeah, but with that said, toodles.